Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our post-cabinet press conference. It is a pleasure to have today the Honorable Stuart Young, our Minister of National Security, and the Honorable Terence Dial Singh, Minister of Health. Mr. Young will address you first.
Thank you very much, colleague Minister Cox. Good afternoon, members of the media, wider viewing and listening public of Trinidad and Tobago. It's my pleasure to just make two very quick and simple announcements here this afternoon that were taken, well, one taken by Cabinet and the other one with respect to the Honorable Prime Minister. The first is, I am happy to say that today the Cabinet of Trinidad and Tobago took a decision in line with a lot of the work that you've seen taking place with respect to our historical buildings and the restoration of these pillars of pride. And in particular today, I'm talking about the Red House in Port of Spain. Cabinet took a decision today that we should make all of the necessary plans and moves to allow marriages to take place at the Red House. Once again, I see some eyes lighting up in the back there as though they will be the first to utilize this opportunity. But yes, so the Cabinet of Trinidad and Tobago has today taken a decision that we are going to allow marriages and the registration of marriages once again at the Red House in Port of Spain. And we believe it is a move in keeping with the whole plan with respect to some of these historical buildings. We also discussed, and it is going to be implemented once we receive the necessary advice from the Honorable Attorney General, a move towards how we deal with some of the other historic buildings, Stolmeyer's Castle, Millfleur that is currently under restoration, White Hall, as well as the Red House, and that whole stretch, President's House, making these the types of attractions that we believe they should be and part of our whole tourism drive and thrust. We are currently having discussions with the Heritage Trust for historical buildings in Trinidad and Tobago to see the type of relationship that can be worked out with them, and in particular, give them some sort of locus that would allow them to attract assistance from the outside international foundations and international trusts as well, and key players, stakeholders that would allow them to attract funding to be able to maintain these buildings. So we're looking at that, the exploration of the relationship with our Heritage Trust personnel in Trinidad. But as at this stage, we have taken a decision to return to the Red House for marriages and to allow that to take place. It is a great tradition, as you all know. The second is to announce the Honorable Prime Minister has asked me to inform the population and the public of Trinidad and Tobago that he received an invitation from the President of the Republic of Ghana, who, as you know, visited Trinidad and Tobago last year, along with an entourage and a delegation. The President of Ghana wrote to the Honorable Prime Minister asking him to join the people of Ghana to celebrate their 63rd Independence Day anniversary of Ghana, which will be held on the 6th of March 2020, and not only to join them, but to join as a special guest of honor. So our Prime Minister has been invited to join the people of Ghana as a special guest of honor at this year's ceremony, scheduled to be held in Kumasi, the capital of the Ashanti region and Ghana's second city. And this is building on the success of the year of return, which the President of Ghana embarked upon last year, which was the promotion of Ghana. So it is the culmination and the end of 1 year of return by the people of Ghana, being led by the President of Ghana, and which his visits, his global visits, brought him to Trinidad and Tobago. And of course, this is the strengthening of the ties. You all will recall that the Prime Minister had an official visit to Ghana very early in his term as Prime Minister, and he has now accepted an invitation by the President of Ghana to return for their 63rd Independence Day anniversary to be held on the 6th of March. And as the detailed preparations take place, we'll have more announcements as to the specifics of that. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much. We'll now have the Honorable Terence Dial Singh, Minister of Health.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the media, and good afternoon to citizens of Trinidad and Tobago looking and listening. As you know, the global community has been coping with the issue of coronavirus um, after the initial outbreak in the Wuhan district in the Hubei province of China. Just to give you a global perspective, before I get into the specific measures approved by Cabinet today. Globally, we know that the virus is now present in 22 countries. To date, there are 7,800 confirmed cases with 170 deaths to date. The mortality rate of the coronavirus so far is about 2.4%. That is, for every 100 people who get it, roughly 2.4 people will die. This compares with SARS, which hit the global community in 2002, which had a mortality rate of around 10%. So I'm just giving you the comparators to know what we are dealing with as compared to SARS. SARS was 10%, coronavirus currently is 2.4%. To date, certain countries have taken very serious action. For example, Hong Kong has shut off its connections to mainland China by air, by rail, by ship. Russia has closed its land border with China, and that's a land border of between 2,000 to 4,000 miles, a very long land border. What are we doing in Trinidad and Tobago, and what has Cabinet approved today? I am going to give you all the layers of measures being taken around the world and locally to interrupt transmission of the virus, because your objective is, as a public health response, to interrupt transmission. So the first thing, as I just mentioned, are border closings. For example, Hong Kong, Russia. Travel restrictions. China has imposed its own very serious travel restrictions on its own populations. What you are seeing internationally is that countries and airlines are actually canceling flights in and out of China. That is a measure to interrupt transmission. British Airways, Lufthansa, Lion Air, all the major airlines that fly in and out of China have canceled flights. So even if you wanted to get out of China now, you could not get out very, very easily. The other measure being implemented globally and here is airport screenings. I have spoken a lot about that. Very important factor. Under Caribbean impacts, there's something called the Joint Regional Communication Committee, JRCC, based in Barbados. What they are doing now, as they have always done, but everybody is on heightened alert, they have the advanced passenger manifest of all aircraft flying into the region and all cruise ships operating in the region. They will screen approximately 47 million people per annum coming into the region. The reason I raise this is to let you know that the system is in fact working. There was a Condor flight originating in Germany, which came into Tobago on Tuesday. Because the JRCC is working, we in Trinidad and the focal point in Tobago had advanced knowledge that there was a possibility that there were 150 Chinese aboard that flight. So Tobago was prepared with everything, thermal screening, hospital on standby, and all of that. It turned out that because of all the measures I have given so far, airport screenings, closure of borders, it turned out that the flight did not, in fact, have the 150 Chinese coming into Tobago. So the system being put in place globally is working. And the Joint Regional Communication Community is, in fact, giving us forewarning about sea and air travel for people. So that is actually working. The local response to date. 256 flights have been screened with a total of 8,588 passengers and crew, and the number of persons who are febrile or who have fever is 0 to date. Where does the cabinet decision of today now fit in? As Minister of Health, relying on the experts at the Ministry of Health, World Health Organization, the cabinet was informed of the following suggestion to date, which they have accepted. The suggestion is that with immediate effect, once the necessary legal provisions are put in place, and I'll come to that soon, that persons who are presently living in China or visiting China, regardless of your nationality, will not be allowed entry into Trinidad and Tobago for 14 days after leaving China. So for argument's sake, if you left China tomorrow on the 1st, you will not be allowed entry into Trinidad and Tobago until the 14th of February, regardless of nationality. Why 14 days? The incubation period for the coronavirus is currently between 7 to 14 days. So we have gone with the outside limit. That is how you interrupt transmission of the coronavirus. We have precedent for this going back to the Ebola issue in 2014, where Trinidad and Tobago did in fact issue visa restrictions of 5 countries in Africa. So there is ample precedent for this. To effect this travel restriction, we have to do certain legal niceties. The Attorney General is currently doing that. We have to do a legal notice to give effect under the Ministry of National Security for the Chief Immigration Officer to effect this. The other legal notice is that the Ministry of Health, under the Public Health Ordinance, will now designate coronavirus, to use the language in the Act, as an infectious disease and a dangerous infectious disease, as we did with Ebola in 2014. So the Cabinet took that decision today. Once the legal notices go out, the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of National Security, and the Ministry of Works and Transport, under which the Civil Aviation Authority resides, these measures will come in place with almost immediate effect. So just to recap, I have given you the global context. I have given you what is happening with Hong Kong, Russia, and so on. I have told you what is happening with the joint regional communication community based in Barbados and the experience we had with the Condor flight in Tobago on Tuesday, so that is working. And as I said, the Cabinet approved the travel restriction that anyone, regardless of nationality, must be outside of Trinidad and Tobago for 14 days after having left China. Those are the measures in place, and we look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you. The floor is now open.
Albert, I think Mr. Amar got a jump on you.
I heard you talk about the advanced passenger, and you said it was indicated that there were 150, but that did not materialize. Is there some miscommunication? How do we get advanced passenger coming on a plane? The people in Barbados tell us 150, and when it arrives here, it's 20.
Yeah, sure. The Minister of National Security will answer that.
The reason I can answer that, because this is something that is in place. The body that the minister referred to is actually a regional body where all advanced passenger manifest goes into, of anyone coming into the CARICOM region. As you would know, once tickets are booked, once people are checked in, etc., then there's certain information that flows. So whilst we can't answer with particulars as to at what point these 150 passengers were not allowed onto the plane, there are different stages. So you'd have one passenger manifest, which would say these are the people who are booked to come onto this flight. And then there may be, before they get onto the flight, other stages where they would be screened and said told that you can't come onto the flight. So there's absolutely nothing abnormal with that. It happens all of the time. There are many manifests on a particular flight from the time of it becoming a flight that is going to leave at a particular time and persons leaving, the information is always susceptible to change.
How many people did arrive?
About 130, I am told.
Final question on this matter is, I hear nothing about education of the public.
Oh no, that is going on as we speak. As a matter of fact, right now the chief medical officer is at a symposium being held by UE, together with virologists, Dr. Joy St. John of CARFA, and he is on live UE TV right now as we speak, educating the public. I myself have been on numerous television shows. I have been speaking to the media, alerting the public and informing the public, and that goes on. And we will ramp it up with time.
Is Trinidad and Tobago the first country to impose travel restrictions on people living in China?
I think I indicated that countries like Hong Kong and Russia have also imposed their own version of travel restrictions. Different countries will do their risk analysis and take whatever actions they can. But Hong Kong has actually shut down their railings, their ceilings, and a lot of their airlinks. And as I said, Russia has closed off their land border with China. So different countries take different measures.
Would you not admit that there is a difference between Russia and Trinidad and Tobago?
Of course. And that's why each country, based on a risk assessment, will take actions to protect their own local population. So we don't have a land border with Russia. We don't have a sea border with them. We don't even, with China, we don't even have direct flights. So each country, the dynamics are going to be different, and each country has to take whatever actions they deem necessary.
There are several Chinese firms, contracting firms, construction firms operating in Trinidad and Tobago. Europe Interchange, the central block of the Port of Spain General Hospital. On Tuesday, your colleague, Minister Imbert, presided over a function in which a third Chinese company got the contract to build the airport in Tobago. And therefore, there are a number of Chinese citizens working in Trinidad and Tobago, and presumably going back and forth. Is the travel restriction going to have an impact on the completion of the Europe Interchange, the Central Block, and the Tobago Airport?
Yeah. That's a reasonable question. So the Chinese workers already in Trinidad will continue their work. The main aim of the measure is to protect the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. This is a health emergency. So I think any minor interruption in construction projects, when you do the cost-benefit analysis, it is more beneficial for the government to be very proactive in protecting its local population and everyone who lives here, even at the expense of maybe delays in some projects, if there are going to be delays.
If I may be allowed a quick follow-up
Sure.
question. You were able to tell us the mortality rate for the coronavirus. Could you tell us the mortality rate for the local flu that has killed 38 people?
Well, 38 people, and the number of suspect cases, I don't have that information offhand. But I can tell you, when we look at the flu, influenza, a lot of those deaths were preventable if people had heeded the government's warning since October 2019 to get vaccinated. And I'm sure if I take a poll of you all here to ask how many of you are vaccinated, the answer is going to be none. How many have been vaccinated? One. And that's the problem we have with vaccination. 1 out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And that's the problem we have.
You have to admit that the problem also, you said that you will ramp it up.
Yes.
But again, the issue is you're not taking a global presentation of ramping it up. You're selective in who you go by to ramp it up.
Explain, please.
So you end up choosing a particular radio frequency and get them the business. You don't go across the board.
I am not spending, I'm not giving. But The Corpcom and the Ministry of Communications will see about that.
Minister, you were giving
Thank you.
some figures. You said 256 flights, and did you say 8,000?
18,000. 18.
You said 14,000.
Sorry,
18,000.
18,000, I believe I said. Yeah.
You said 8,000.
18,000, sorry, I apologize. 18,588 passengers and crew.
And is that both at Piarco and ANR?
This is at Piarco. Yes.
What about at ANR?
I will have to get that figure from the Tobago THA.
June Round TV6 was just wondering, whoever could answer. In the cabinet's deliberations, because we are in the carnival season.
Yes.
And you heard this conversation, at least from one opposition MP, about whether there should be an even wider travel restriction in light of the number of foreign visitors that come to Trinidad today for carnival, which is also a major revenue earning tourism event. Did that form part of the cabinet's conversations about carnival?
So let's tackle the issue of carnival and the transmissibility of the skin. The United States, with direct flights to Wuhan, with direct flights to China, a population of over 300 million, they have 5 confirmed cases. The reason I say that is to give you an idea of the scale, small scale of what we are dealing with. The United States has 5 cases in a population of over 300 million, with direct flights to both Wuhan and mainland China. So the chances of someone from the United States, England has less than 5 cases, and those are our major markets for carnival. So we don't see any reasonable threat, any threat at all. So the issue of carnival is going to go on unless something really dramatic happens. But right now, that does not enter into the equation.
Does it give you pause that neither the U.S. nor the United Kingdom have restricted travel in the way that Trinidad and Tobago has?
Well, it depends on how you define restrict travel. British Airways has canceled all flights to China. That is a serious restriction of travel. As I said, different countries will do their different risk analysis and determine how best to protect their own population. For British Airways, which flies directly into China, into Heathrow, into Gatwick, to take that decision is a serious restriction of travel. For Lufthansa, which flies directly from Germany to China, to take that decision is a serious restriction of travel. So each country will determine what is in their best interest to break the transmission of the virus. All these actions are to break the transmission of the virus.
I did have a follow-up.
Sure.
If you don't allow me. You did speak about legal notices and so on. For those of us who may not understand that language, any need to go to Parliament, or this is just a simple matter of the government just putting it into effect?
One legal notice, which the Attorney General is currently drafting, has to go to Parliament and be laid by negative resolution. That is being done as we speak. No.
Just back to Carnival for a second. If all things hold steady, the virus doesn't, begin to blow up, etc. But might we still stand to lose some revenue, let's say, for Carnival, just because of the fact that people may be afraid?
The main responsibility of the Ministry of Health and the government at this point in time is to protect its citizens. That is our major #1 responsibility.
I mean, just everyone's mood, the global mood with regard to that virus. I mean, do we feel as if maybe people
jump
just
in
won't
here with
come
my
in,
colleague.
won't come in?
At the end of the day, you're asking us to speculate. At the end of the day, we can't speak for people who want to come here for Carnival or not. What we've laid out is the government's position that at this stage, based completely on the guidance from the Ministry of Health and the Minister of Health, we don't see that as entering into the narrative of this stage. This is an evolving topic and subject. If and when the Minister of Health comes to us with a different position, we are already on standby and ready to deal with it. The one thing I'll add that we are discussing, and we've been discussing over the past week, the Minister of Health and myself, this is not the first time that Trinidad and Tobago has faced a situation like this. We've faced SARS before, we've faced Ebola before, so there are templates in place, there are policies, procedures In fact, in our discussions, we were reminding each other that I think it was it had to be last year or
Yes.
late the year before, there were some suspected cases of persons who had returned from Hajj in Saudi Arabia who may have had some sort of disease.
SARS or
And,
MERS,
and
yeah.
we isolated them and we did what needed to be done. So the government, and in particular the various agencies and ministries, are very capable of handling the situation, and that's what we're doing. We are not going to enter into any panic or any speculative talk at this stage.
Are you confident, Minister, that the frontline staff in the airports are properly equipped to deal with people coming
Yes.
through?
I myself, sorry?
The head of the PSA
Yes.
yesterday
Mhm.
was saying masks,
Mhm.
proper masks, Lysol, and other things. Are these issues in place at this time?
Yes, so I was there myself last week, Thursday. I did a complete walkthrough with public health inspectors at the airport in the presence of Dr. Osafo Fraser, who is the County Medical Officer of Health, the Chief Medical Officer, and we went through the whole process from disembarkation, thermal screening, handheld, fixed. We visited Port Health. They have all the masks there. I said so in response to a question in the Senate on Monday. There's sanitizer, there's everything there, so there's no need to worry about frontline workers. I must tell you that immigration officers have a layer of protection that no one else will have. They are behind glass. And that is a serious layer of protection. If immigration officers, and I made the offer to the Minister of National Security yesterday morning at 8 a.m., before Mr. Duke made his statements, if immigration officers, which fall under the Ministry of National Security, want any additional protection, we are ready, willing, and able to supply it.
And I'll just add to that, the answer was in the affirmative, and the instructions given to the permanent secretaries at the Ministry of National Security yesterday, before any utterances, that we are to reach out to immigration and provide them with whatever PPP they need, and to liaise directly with the Ministry of Health.
Minister, I have an unrelated question just to the coronavirus.
Sure.
I don't know when last you visited Mount Hope.
I was there last week, Tuesday.
So let me ask you, Derek, are you satisfied with the condition of the hospital?
What condition are you speaking? Physical?
The toilets, the walkways, the elevators, the area where the sick people have to go up and down, the condition of the floors.
I raised that issue with the Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Davlin Thomas, because when one looks at Mount Hope, remember that was a hospital built in the 1980s. Successive governments, Mr. Amar, have neglected the facility. Even when oil and gas was flowing through this country between 2010 and 2015, when you had $60 billion budgets and nothing was done to Eric Williams. And I have instructed the CEO and the board to look seriously at upgrading Eric Williams, even though this government is in financial constraints.
I don't want it to seem as if there is a government responsibility, because it is the responsibility of a budget allocation which has maintenance built in it. And if it means to say the persons who were there let it run down, then you can't blame the government. We have to blame the administrators. And then action should be taken against them by firing them. But I want to send you the pictures of what I took.
Mr. Amar, I was there last week, Tuesday, and I go there very often. You don't have to send me pictures. I am well aware, and I have suggested to the CEO and the board that they take some measures to spruce up the area to make it more inviting. I have done that.
In your view, what timeline you want to give them to have an improvement?
As soon as humanly possible.
So what is that, a month, a year?
As soon as humanly possible.
That's not a good enough answer, Minister. I mean, I don't think that's a managerial answer. You must have a predictability. Within 6 months, I will go back, and if it's not there, we'll fire the man. Because, I mean, that's the problem in the country today, you know. We have the guys who we give the jobs to. We pay them big salaries as the Prime Minister. All they want to do is collect the money and go home.
I thank you for your
And when they don't get the
concern.
money, they're complaining.
I thank you for your concern, but the matter has been attended to.
I'll keep my eyes open.
Just wondering, going back to the coronavirus
Sure.
issue quickly. has the government had any direct communication with the government of China or continues to have direct communication?
Yes.
I asked this because the Foreign Ministry issued a release yesterday concerning 120 nationals that they said they have been in contact with, one of whom they said is in Wuhan, the Foreign Ministry. It turns out that the Trinidad and Tobago national says that the last who said she had been in Wuhan, up to the point of when the virus got serious, she said that she had left, had not heard from the embassy in Beijing since May of last year.
Yeah, I saw that carried on TV6 last night. The point is, one, we don't have the specifics with respect to that, but two, I am certain you travel outside of Trinidad and Tobago, or you have traveled. I'm certain, for example, you may have gone to the United States, and I'm not sure how regularly you would expect the embassy to be reaching out to you. So very often, I was a student in the United Kingdom moons ago. I never had any single point of contact with the Trinidad and Tobago High Commission in London during the course of my stay there for 5 years. So there's nothing unusual with that. If there's a need for the Trinidad and Tobago government to reach out to its citizens in foreign countries through our consulates or embassies or high commissions, it happens. And what you saw there was an example of it became necessary to reach out to who was there and contact was made. So I wasn't quite sure where the story was going, or a citizen going with saying, well, I hadn't been contacted as of May last year to now. I didn't understand the relevance of it.
Just as a follow-up, that citizen is now saying that she was subsequently contacted by the embassy, but according to her, was informed that the information she submitted upon her arrival in terms of location, emergency contacts, and so on, had not apparently been logged into the embassy's records. So her concern was that if there was some sort of evacuation plan, that she would not have been officially registered.
Jules, what I'm pointing out to you, the contradiction in reality is at the point in time when the Trinidad and Tobago government needed to locate its citizen, and this one in particular, they were able to, because what she's telling you is I was contacted, not that she contacted the embassy. She was contacted by the embassy.
Just to clarify, what she had said was that when she had put her first post on Facebook concerning her concerns, she contacted the embassy and was originally told, according to her, they're glad that she got out of Wuhan, the emergency number. And she said after the story aired is when she was subsequently contacted.
All right. Well, again, we don't have the specifics of it, but I'm glad she was contacted in any event, and I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. I was just following up on the issue of contact because you had said in terms of that the government has been communicating with the government of China, so that's what.
But let me just add here. The Chinese government has reached out to the Trinidad and Tobago embassy in China and is providing all necessary support for Trinidadians in China. And the best place for that person to be, if they are well now, speaking from a clinical perspective, as all countries are advising, self-isolation. Stay in your house. You would see football teams are being confined to their hotels. That's the safest and best thing you can do for your health.
Just to follow up on that point, if, God forbid, we have a situation of the coronavirus in Trinidad and Tobago, do we have the capacity, not just in terms of the screening as you talked about, but to actually deal with any sort of situation like that here?
Yes. So, as I said, comparatively speaking, United States has 5 cases. 5. Population of 300 million plus. Trinidad and Tobago, right now, we have total capacity to deal with any possible case or multiple cases of suspected or highly suspicious cases of coronavirus. We have isolation capacities in all the major hospitals. We have further isolation capability in Cora, and very soon we'll have more isolation capacity in the old Costard building in Port of Spain, which we have retrofitted because of the decanting of Central Block. So we'll have more than enough physical capacity to treat with any eventuality, and the public should be reassured of that. We have all the PPE, we have all the drugs that are needed. So I just want to reassure the public that the health system in Trinidad and Tobago is more than capable of dealing with any eventuality.
Mr. Young, the issue of maintenance of state buildings was discussed a few minutes ago. The question is, has the government put anything in place to ensure that the state buildings that you referred to at the top of your presentation, Red House, President's House, etc., that there will be a budget or budgets in place to ensure the maintenance of these houses after over $1 billion was spent?
Absolutely. As you've seen, for example, with the Stolmeyer's Castle, the White Wall that is in use, etc. So yes, for each of those buildings, all of them that have been restored, there are maintenance programs in place.
And who is responsible for that?
Who is responsible for what?
For the maintenance of those buildings?
As far as I am aware, and according to my recollection, it would be UDCOT at this stage.
When I sought any information concerning what the line minister, I'm not sure what it was, the issue of the leaks that occurred at the Red House just days after the opening, when the heavy rainfall.
Well, as you know, the Red House is now the Parliament, the House of Parliament. I think that has been fully ventilated. UDCOT continued to be there. From what I have seen of what UDCOT has put out, which all of you all have carried, it continued to be under the warranty, under the guarantee, and I walked past. I was there yesterday and saw the workmen working on it. They've told us it was a seal that was faulty and it was being replaced at no cost because, of course, it was still under guarantee.
Minister, in the Prime Minister's address, he quoted Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister when he was talking about the money spent for these projects, including the Red House, for
41 million.
419 plus 21, 441 million. The minister he referred to here was you?
Me, yeah.
Okay. So therefore, when you look at this, I just have two
When
quick
you look
questions.
at what?
When you look at the cost, I have two questions to ask. One deals with the Clico building next door. Is it correct that that building is now part of
No.
the
The
property?
Cabildo Chambers, which was formerly the Office of the Attorney General, was passed over to the Parliament, is now the companion building for the Red House and the House of Parliament.
So the buildings by the old Ministry of Agriculture were renovated. Who
Right.
is that allocated to?
Ministry of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs.
And who was the restoration professional that was appointed to oversee these restorations?
I don't have those facts in front of me.
And was there a quantity surveyor that was appointed to oversee these costs?
There would have been quantity surveyors appointed. UDCOT was the project manager. They used to meet directly with the historical committee, restoration committee, of which I was a part of. And at our level, what we did is we basically grilled the various packages that were being awarded and made sure there was value for money.
So there were two costs in here that seemed fairly expensive. One was the electrical installation of $16 million
On which one? On the Red House?
on the Red House.
What you had is a complete overhaul of the electrical installations for the Red House. In fact, what you had happen was a digging out of a basement. So all of that is now held in a basement facility under the Red House. And it was a complete revamp of all electricals.
The basement cost to fix was $32 million.
I don't think you understand, You have to create the basement. There wasn't a basement in existence before. You have to then, in the basement, do what needs to be done. So one of the things that the basement was used for is some of the electricals. Of course, you'll have electricals running out throughout the whole building. You may recall that the Red House was literally gutted. So it is redoing all of the electricals for the Red House.
The final thing I have to ask, the TV broadcasting, the CCTV, and all of the things, 8 and 614, about $16 million. All the old ones, wasn't it?
All the old what?
All the old broadcasting components that was there that was supplied in the operation before you shut it down, that was working, those things have to be thrown away.
I don't know whether they were thrown away or they weren't thrown away. At the end of the day, that is what the Parliament required, and I dare say that the Parliament's broadcasting is probably one of the best in the country. Yes.
Another topic, the issue with the long waits for the passports. I know you said you were speak with immigration is supposed to provide continuous an update?
Well, as I told you earlier this week when you asked me about it, the long wait for a passport appointment is unacceptable in my view. I've made that very, very clear. I asked the permanent secretaries, as I told you earlier this week, to please have that dealt with immediately. I'd asked them previously. I was told that the reason was because they had introduced a new call center and a number to call for appointments. And I have, up to this morning, told the permanent secretaries this remains a priority. I don't personally know if they've already begun reducing the time, but I've told them it is unacceptable and it must be reduced.
Minister, you know that Jamaica is online for the renewal of their passports?
I'll take your word for it, and I have no doubt
That's
that
the Prime Minister of Jamaica said that live.
Okay,
So
good.
it kind of worries me. And then the other thing is, CARICOM is supposed to work together. Have you seen the passport immigration department in Barbados versus the one we have in Trinidad?
I don't know if you're aware, but Barbados has a population of a lot less. In fact, Barbados' population is, 100,000 or less compared to
Like,
1.3
You know,
million.
they have 60 machines in the immigration internal coming in.
You
Automated.
mean you're now talking about kiosks as opposed to passport?
Well, the same automation system we're trying to employ, that we only have
No,
12.
no,
that
well, I
doesn't
was
work.
being asked about the passports, the physical renewal of passports. You are now talking about kiosks that are used on entering,
Correct.
and that is being dealt with.
They have 60, we have 12.
Very good.
Unless, when we spoke, you said you wanted to get it down some other month.
I've told them it must come down to within the space of a month and then look at further reduction.
Is there, as you were saying, there's
Online
in some
automation,
countries there's
Jamaica.
online and even same day. Is that what we're eventually shooting for?
At this stage, I am taking it one step at a time. The system that was in place, that you all have brought to the forefront, and understandably so, is unacceptable. As the Minister of National Security, it is unacceptable, and that is what I've told them, and I've told them that it must be immediately improved. In the first instance, get it back into that range of acceptability. We are dealing with a lot more persons. Get it back into the range of acceptability, which I've told them in the first instance is a month, and then work it back downwards. They're machine-readable passports. I see no reason why they should be taking so long.
Do you know how long that calling system has been in place?
No, I don't.
Minister, just
Yeah.
Randall from CNC3, are you in a position to divulge what transpired in yesterday's scheduled GSC on crime?
To divulge what I was requested by the Joint Select Committee on National Security to attend, to assist as a member of Parliament and more so as the Minister of National Security. I did so yesterday. I spent approximately 2 hours before the committee. I provided that committee with why it is I said what I said on the 16th of January right here in this room at a post-cabinet conference, and for everything that I said, it was supported by documentation and reports in my possession. I can't say much more than that. What I can say is at the outset, I indicated and asked that it be recorded on the Hansard that I had absolutely no problem with my testimony going live as opposed to being done in camera. I provided all of the assistance that I could to that committee. I was cross-examined, I was asked questions, and then I subsequently left. I certainly did.
Did you get a rationale from the chairman of the committee as to why the GSC is not broadcast live?
Due to the sensitivity of national security matters, and I said that as the Minister of National Security, I'm constantly called upon to do a balancing exercise, with my first priority being the public order and protection of citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, and sometimes balancing that as well with the flow of information that I get from, amongst others, the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service or Intelligence Services, the Defense Force. And on occasion, there are instances where the balancing is providing the public with certain information that I think they should know about.
Just for clarification, you were referring to when you said the statements you made of persons basically orchestrating with criminal elements to cause panic in the society.
That is what I was called to the committee to respond to, yes, because the opposition raised certain questions and they wanted me to come to the Joint Select Committee, which I dutifully did.
Did that also include any of your statements on that day and previously of claims concerning members of the opposition as well, who you did not name? what you expect.
Yes, it did, and as you rightly say, I had put down markers and I reminded the committee of that since February of last year, August of last year, October of last year, November and December, and then again here in January of this year. At this stage, I don't want to say anything further on it. One, because it was before a joint select committee. But then secondly, what I will say is all of the matters that I raised yesterday are the subject of police investigation, and I'm allowing the police, as we should all allow the police, to conduct their investigation and to hopefully conclude their investigations.
Is it prudent for minister in your position to discuss or to raise police investigations during the investigations themselves?
These matters were raised, as I said a short while ago, in a balancing exercise of sometimes there are things that the public should know. So, for example, if information comes to me that there is a certain planned terrorist activity that may take place, and that is brought to my attention, but it is an ongoing investigation as to who is behind it, if it will take place, and we're looking to deter it, on that occasion, it crosses the hurdle for me as the Minister of National Security. I will come at a certain point in time and warn the public that we have been provided with certain information, intelligence, that something may take place and that you should avoid, etc. So there are occasions. On this occasion, I stand completely with what I did, how I did it. You would recall that I called absolutely no names. I drew instances because it was important for the public to be aware that the sudden spike in homicides in the last quarter of last year, and in particular, an incident that took place on the last day of 2019, the 31st of December. This is not something Stuart Young or as the Minister of National Security made up. Information was brought to my attention by, amongst others, the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service with respect to that. And yes, it was very important. And I took the decision to notify the public of what it is I've said so far.
But by going public, is there not a sense in which there are some people who might claim that you tipped off those who may be guilty of such heinous acts?
No. But there can be the claim. Whether I'm concerned about that claim, the answer is no.
I'm happy to hear you say what you said. So, in view that it is a very serious matter because you brought it, because you're concerned, would you say that time is of the essence and the police should act on this expeditiously?
My position is when it comes to the perpetration and the conduct and carrying out of any crime and criminality, it is of the essence, and I'm certain that the police are doing the best that they can.
So if in 3 months we see no action, what does the public say?
Those questions are best directed to the police service. Understand something, and this is the last that I'll say on this for obvious reasons. This information was provided to me by the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. The Trinidad and Tobago Police Service is a constitutional body with the authority and the mandate to investigate criminal activity. As the Minister of National Security, they report incidents and other things to me. This was amongst what they reported to me. So they are investigating it. I urge them with all of the work they do to carry it out fairly, properly, and expeditiously.
Election year, Minister, your response to claims by the opposition that you're playing politics with crime.
In an election year and outside of an election year, with the type of opposition that we're dealing with, I expect them to make all sorts of claims, to make all sorts of noise. It affects me not. I will continue to do my work for the people of Trinidad and Tobago to the best of my ability.
Sorry, just one
Final
more
question.
again to the National Security Minister. If you've spoken on it before, I'm sorry, but are you concerned to see that there's a rise of abuse against children? Different types of violence?
I am very concerned about it. In fact, the gender-based violence as well as violence against our children in Trinidad and Tobago is of particular concern to me. I am happy that the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service is actively boosting their resources in that area in the Ministry of National Security. We also take it very seriously. We have a child protection unit and various agencies looking at it, and they have my full encouragement. And what I'd like to say to the population at large out there, that if you know any child or any woman is being abused, etc., notify the authorities. We have things in place and we will intervene and do what we can. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.